in the early 1990s, when the HIV AIDS epidemic in the gay community in particular had reached a peak. And it was at that point that a lot of the issues that people had to deal with became more prominent. And one of the things that often came up as an issue, particularly in a culture like ours in Ireland, where people traditionally would wake or would have an open coffin or some kind of informal setup like that. The problem we had at that time was that because people died very often from an AIDS-related illness, not always exclusively, but very often, there was a universal policy that people who were HIV positive or had received an AIDS diagnosis would have to be body bagged. And if they died in hospital, it was an automatic policy. Now, in fairness to the staff in the hospital, they would try to facilitate the family in the best way they could and give the family time with the deceased. But then automatically the body would be removed into a body bag, removed to the morgue, and then post-mortem, the body would then be handed over to funeral directors, again in a body bag, and the coffin would be sealed. And this was a source of great distress for an awful lot of people. In situations where people died at home, if there wasn't a doctor in attendance, if it was a family member who was caring for the person, or if it was somebody, say, from the hospice, they would probably stay on to help the family to wash the body and prepare the body. But very often that wasn't available. So there was one person in particular at the time, Rosemary Daly, who worked in the Irish Haemophiliac Society. And due to the experience that they had had over the years, because of the disproportionate number of people with haemophilia who were affected by HIV and AIDS, she had developed the skill set, if you like, to help the families by going along and helping them to wash the body and prepare the body. And she used to have two kit bags, I think she referred to them as. One was in the car and one was at her desk. So that if she got a call at any time of the day or night, and I mean literally any time, day or night, 7 days a week, she would jump in her car or get some kind of transport to get to any part of Ireland to try and help out the families. And this, you have to remember, it was at a time when there was an awful lot of ignorance around risk factors from contamination or infection as a result of handling or touching a dead body of somebody who was HIV positive or had AIDS. So for her to go and do that and to make herself available, and she didn't, it wasn't part of her job as such, it was just something she realised needed to be done and understood the humanity behind the bereavement that families were going through. So she, as I said, she would go around the country and help the families, and even to a certain extent maybe even help funeral directors, because there were funeral directors around the country who, when they realised it was somebody with HIV or AIDS, got very, very nervous and would refuse in some instances to actually deal with the dead body.